The Vanishing Vinyl, 1995, 11:59 p.m., Sunset Record Store on the evening of March 15, 1995, in the small coastal town of Millbrook, Oregon. A record store that had served the community for 23 years prepared to close its doors for the last time. Sunset Record Store sat at the corner of Main and Harbor Street, a faded blue storefront with floor-to-ceiling windows that reflected the last dim light of a Pacific Northwest winter. The owner, a 57-year-old man named Harold Wenner, had announced his retirement weeks earlier. Tonight would be final. Weather reports from that day describe overcast skies with intermittent rain, temperatures hovering around 43 degrees. The streets were quiet by 9 o'clock, the local fishermen and logger families retreating early against the cold. By 11, only a handful of lights remained on in the downtown district. Harold Wenner was described by those who knew him as a meticulous man of routine. Neighbors recalled he locked up precisely at midnight, counting the day's receipts in the register before stepping out. He wore the same olive-green jacket every evening, his gray hair always combed back neat. He had no family in the area, no close friends beyond his customers. The community knew him mostly as a quiet figure who could recommend an album based on nothing more than a brief conversation about what kind of mood you were in. At 11:47 p.m., a customer entered the store. This is confirmed by the single security camera positioned above the cash register, its footage the only visual record of that night. The camera, a bulky VHS system installed 4 years earlier, captured a figure in a dark jacket and baseball cap, face obscured by the cap's brim and the camera's limited resolution. The customer walked to the far wall where the jazz collection was displayed and remained there for approximately 8 minutes. At 11:55 p.m., Harold Wenner was seen on camera approaching the counter. He appeared to be speaking with the customer. 3 minutes later, at 11:58 p.m., the camera captured what investigators would later describe as a brief disturbance near the back of the store. The image jostled. Then, at precisely 11:59 p.m., the feed went static. When the camera resumed recording at 12:04 a.m. on March 16th, the store was empty. Harold Wenner was gone. The register was found open and empty, though investigators would later determine that the evening's receipts had already been removed by Wenner himself, as was his habit. $37 in change remained in the drawer. 8 vinyl records were discovered on the counter, left behind by the customer, 4 jazz albums, 2 blues compilations, and 2 classical pieces. No fingerprints could be extracted from their surfaces. The front door was locked from the inside when deputies arrived at 12:30 a.m., responding to a call from a neighboring business owner who had noticed the lights still on past midnight. The back door, which led to a small storage room and exit to the alley, was found secure. All windows remained intact. There was no sign of struggle, no blood, no indication of violence. Harold Wenner had simply vanished into the night, leaving behind a store full of records and a community desperate for answers. Investigators from the Millbrook County Sheriff's Department spent weeks canvassing the area. They spoke to 17 people who claimed to have been in the downtown area that evening. 14 reported seeing nothing unusual. 2 remembered passing by Sunset Record Store around 11:15 and noticing Wenner alone, reorganizing a shelf of used 45s. One witness, a woman named Diane Okolo who ran the bakery 2 doors down, offered a potentially significant detail. She told detectives she had locked up around 10:30, but remained in her kitchen doing accounts until nearly midnight. During that time, she heard a car pull up and stop outside, not on Harbor Street, but in the small gravel lot behind the record store. She could not identify the make or color, only that the engine ran for approximately 5 minutes before she heard it pull away. That car was never identified. The investigation expanded to include the Oregon State Police, who contributed forensic analysts and detectives with more resources. They traced Harold Wenner's last known movements through witnesses and physical evidence. He had eaten dinner that evening at Rosie's Diner, a 12-minute walk from the record store. The waitress, Maria Gonzalez, remembered him ordering the meatloaf special and coffee. He left a tip of exactly 20%, which she noted because he always did. He seemed, she said, in good spirits. His landlord confirmed he had paid March rent 3 days earlier. His mail was collected regularly. Bank statements showed no unusual activity. He had no debts, no enemies that anyone could identify, no romantic relationships. He had worked at the same store for over 2 decades, first as an employee, then as owner after the previous proprietor retired. Those who knew him best described a private man who seemed content with his solitude. 3 weeks after the disappearance, search teams combed the forested areas surrounding Millbrook, the dense evergreen woods that pressed against the town's edges. They found nothing. The nearby river was dragged twice. No belongings, no clothing, no trace. It was as though Harold Wenner had stepped through some invisible threshold and ceased to exist. The records left on the counter became the investigation's most puzzling physical evidence. Detectives studied them repeatedly, searching for hidden messages or markings. The albums included Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, John Coltrane's Blue Train, a Muddy Waters compilation, and an Elvis Presley record from 1956. The 2 classical pieces were Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and a collection of Chopin nocturnes. Why had this customer selected these particular records? Were they significant to Wenner, or merely coincidence? The question never received a satisfying answer. In 1997, 2 years after the disappearance, a woman named Sandra Wenner came forward claiming to be Harold's sister from Spokane, Washington. She had read about the case in a regional newspaper and came forward hoping to assist. DNA testing confirmed no biological relationship. She had never met Harold Wenner. She could offer no information about his disappearance, only that she had recognized his photograph and thought perhaps they might be connected. She was eventually ruled out as a person of interest. The investigation officially remains open. The Millbrook County Sheriff's Department maintains Harold Wenner's file in active status, though detectives acknowledge that after nearly 30 years, the chances of resolution diminish with each passing season. The case has been reviewed periodically, most recently in 2019, when new forensic techniques prompted a re-examination of the evidence collected in 1995. The results yielded nothing new. The store itself closed permanently in the months following the disappearance. The building changed hands twice, now housing a real estate office with large windows that catch the afternoon light. Former customers still occasionally mention Harold Wenner when they pass the corner of Main and Harbor Street, wondering aloud what became of the quiet man who knew every record in his shop. Some questions resist answers. Some absences define a place more than any presence ever could. In Millbrook, the disappearance of Harold Wenner remains not merely an unsolved case, but a wound that has never quite closed. A 57-year-old man who locked up his shop one final time and walked into the night, leaving behind only 8 records on a counter and a town, forever searching for the sound of his footsteps fading into the rain.